slides. Can everybody see our, let's go to this slide mode, just about 3 or 4 slides in the beginning, and then we'll go to the demonstration. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so the goals, first of all, were to conform to the underlying model framework of Healthy Decisions model. And that gives us some advantages in the sense that as we create various constructs, knowledge artifacts, they're bound by constraints and conditions of the underlying semantics of the model. Whereas if you were just doing an XML editing process, you wouldn't have that capability. And also, another advantage that having the underlying model gives is that you can potentially render the output in different forms, not just the XML output, but you could output it to other languages or to English-like form and so on by creating model transformations, basically. But you'd have to build adapters for each of those, but at least the potential by having the model and the formal semantics allows that to happen. Of course, an underlying other feature is being able to import and export
now joining
the HeD artifacts that are in the format. I mean, in XML format. What we really wanted to achieve, though, because the HeD model is very complex if any of you have looked at it, and the XML is kind of really not very user-friendly. So what we wanted to do is create editing that done not knowledge engineers doing model-level refinements or XML editing, but rather subject matter experts. And what we wanted to achieve is to allow them to use concepts and language that are, familiar to them and not at the technical level. And they can kind of do it in an abstract kind of concept level with the refinements of the actual value sets or the logic constraints added later or added by a knowledge engineer. So they can provide the kind of overview structure and then progressively refine from the top down rather than kind of the detailed bottom level coding that a knowledge engineer would need to do. And also to be able to provide a kind of semi-human readable or ideally fully human readable rendition of it and to be able to go between levels. So what we're going to show, we tried to find a good example that had actually been modeled for HeD, and we picked actually a quality measure, NQF0068, which was one of the demonstration models that was developed as part of the pilots. And so the measure here is
now joining.
The measure is designed to evaluate the use of antithrombotic medication for patients that have had either ischemic vascular disease, CABG, or a diagnosis of AMI, acute myocardial infarction. And the antibiotic therapy should be prescribed at the time of discharge, so that's what the measure does. What we did was to, based on a flowchart that New Mentor submitted, and there's a link there, to turn that into a proactive decision rule that would be done at the time of discharge or pre-discharge. So I don't know if you can read the details here, but it has several if conditions. If AMI diagnosis or patient status post CABG or ischemic vascular disease, and if the patient is greater than or equal to 18 years of age, and if not already on antithrombotic therapy, and if not having a contraindication to antithrombotic therapy, then you provide some documentation messages and you provide some actions like actually prescribing it or documenting why you're not prescribing it or documenting that they're already on it. So that's basically the rule. Now, what we're going to do is go to the demo, and we'll switch over to the demonstration.
Okay.
And what we're going to show you first is an already built version of that and then we'll, as time allows, show you kind of starting with a skeletal version of that, how you would actually build it. That way we can stop at any point when you feel that you've got the idea and we don't have to go through all the details. But so we have right now an open rule, anti-symbiotic rule we call it. And you'll notice on the home screen there's a chance to create new rules, open an existing, or modify existing. So go ahead and let's just go to the authoring mode. And we'll just show you what it has here. Dominic, you want to just go through some of the metadata elements that are in there?
Yep. So
we won't spend a lot of time on that, because I think you get the idea of those. They're not too.
I hope everybody can see the screen and hope that the refresh and the quality is good enough that can be read. Is that correct?
Yep, you're good, Doug.
You can see, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Because due to some compatibility issues with the conferencing system, we have to run this on a virtual machine, which slows down the process a little bit. But anyway, so some of you might remember these screens from previous presentations. So we have the ability to fill in the basic metadata that are part of the HeD schema. So starting from the description of the artifact itself, and then as needed, adding contributors. So I've already pre-populated some of these, like an author here, or we can add concepts that relate to clinical coverage, for example. Now, as we will see, we have integration with the coding systems and terminology systems based on an implementation of the CTS2 standard that allows to integrate the editor with an external server that provides resources in terms of code and value sets. So here, the clinical focus is being looked at, and we'll see again later how in other places we can take advantage of this. And all the different the major sections of the HeD schema can be populated.
So we're not going to spend more time on that. I think you get the idea, unless anybody wants to see.
This is a slightly simplified version of the full schema that allows to focus on the major and most important details. So let's move to the concrete parts of the editor. So as you know, the HeD schema is modular, and we've reflected this modularity even here in the editor. So we got three main sections, one dedicated to triggers, one dedicated to logic, and one dedicated to actions. And based on which artifact is being offered, the different sections will have different weights. So let's go to triggers first. And as you can see, we have this high-level approach based on a visual rendition of the different pieces of the logic. This is a high-level representation that focuses on the top-level concepts and items, and is built using this puzzle-like block-oriented approach. The canvas here shows that this rule is a very simple one, has a simple trigger that's a type of trigger that will cause this rule to be evaluated on the discharge or the pre-discharge.
That should say pre-discharge. Maybe we can just edit that.
I just picked probably a different one. So we could add actually.
We'll just change the comment, the title of it right now.
Okay. So
because we'll go back to how to build that later. Or let's leave that for now. We'll go back and show that. What we've done is, by the way, on the left, you'll notice there are some what we call templates or primitive concepts that can be either searched for by starting to type a concept that relates to one of those. You can start typing discharge, for example, and it would pull up all the concepts that relate to discharge as a concept. Or you could, and this list of categories is very extensible, so there's user-oriented things like a user logs in or logs out, or accesses a patient list, or other actions, enters order entry, function, or anything that can be model, and then there's time types of events, and then there's what's that one saying? I'm a little far away from the screen here.
So there's things like
What's that?
updates on the
Oh yeah, so like updates, like a lab result occurs, or a patient is set for pre-discharge or pre-admission or visits the clinic or things like that.
So one thing.
This is Jacob.
Yeah.
One quick question: are triggers necessary, or are triggers required? Can I create a knowledge artifact that states something without
Yes.
explicitly defining the trigger?
Yeah, like an order entry, order set wouldn't have one necessarily.
Yep.
Or just I'm trying to express a knowledge fact, right? A patient who meets a set of criteria needs colon cancer screening.
Yeah, we're just showing the three elements of the model. So there's a on or trigger part. We'll go to the logic part next, but there doesn't have to be anything in any of those. They can be defaulted to null.
Okay.
So a documentation template might not have a trigger, or an order set might not.
Yep. The other thing to consider is that all the templates are completely model-driven. So we have a user set here for this demo, but actually we have a larger set that we could derive from the list of templates that's been designed for the HeD pilot that was there.
Let's go to the logic section. Just to get
Yeah, let's go here.
So here are the categories of. So again, you can always create logic from scratch, but we had the belief that often one is going to do things like enter a lab result, and you want to either compare it to a threshold or check to see whether that lab result has been obtained in some interval previously, or you're doing a medication and you want to check it for interactions or for dose or for something like that, or you're going to order some other procedure, or you're going to do some other, make a diagnosis or things like that. So you can have condition templates basically that kind of pre-configure some of the elements you're going to need for that, which allow you to enter them. So what we have here are some examples from the condition expression on that flowchart that we showed you. So go through what the logic conditions are, just point them out.
There's a combination so that all the conditions must hold, and those conditions that must hold are at least one of the diagnoses or procedures that were required to scope the setting, and then the condition of the age of the patient, so a demographic condition age greater than 18, plus not being already on an antipsychotic medication, plus what we pick one possible contraindication, so not being on
Low platelet.
low platelet count.
But you could actually have a value set for contraindications, which we didn't include here. Okay, then go to the action side. Oh, they're there. Okay.
Yep.
So actions, we just modeled communication actions like sending a message. What is
The places of order,
yeah.
collecting basic information. So again, we took a limited subset of templates just for this demo, but as mentioned, we have a large set that was taken from the HeD spec, and that could also be further enlarged or expanded if needed.
So what this collection of things shows here is the actions that were in that flowchart that we showed you. I don't know if it's useful to look back to that.
Maybe.
So basically it's sending a message to the patient and sending a message to the provider, and then doing one of either prescribing the medications or documenting that the patient's already on it, or documenting that there's a reason why the patient shouldn't be on it. So that's what this model's maybe just show one of, just describe the basic structure of that validate.
So You mean of one of these actions? Or?
Well, the groupings.
So this is reflecting the HeD model that tends to distinguish between composite actions and atomic actions. So groups of more fine-grained actions have some behavior that tells whether all the member actions should be executed, or maybe just one or none. So there's a few alternatives, and that's reflected. And they're fully composable. The sentence of each action actually defines what each action is meant to do, or either recommend, propose, or even do. And plus, we have the ability to specify refinement conditions that are local to each individual action or to each individual group.
Okay, why don't we just go on to the
preview?
Yeah.
So we'll show later how these things can be built and assembled together. The idea is that once the rule has been authored through all its different components, we'll provide a full view that will summarize how the logic has been defined and actually even generate dynamically the HeD output based on the underlying model.
So this may be a little hard to read on the left. We're going to actually increase the font size, but didn't get a chance to do that. But that's basically the structure of the rule. There's the on condition part that can be collapsed. There's the if conditions, and then actions.
So this is meant to provide an overall view, a quick summary of the major components of the rule, together with any one possible output that we support. Again, this HeD XML is live. It has just been generated from the underlying model, which, for those of you who did not follow the previous presentations, that's completely based on semantic web representations.
And then you have other
we got a few other renditions that we're working on. For example, I have to thank Aziz Boxwell for providing us the initial version of the style sheet that generates a more human-readable, in theory, when this will be finished, an HTML-based rendition of the content, which is an alternative transformation based on this one on the XML, which in turn is derived from the semantic representation. So before we go to the last, to the actual authoring, let me spend just 1 minute on the last view, which is not for spine targets. This is where the actual technical rendition can be accessed. So the previous views were not meant for knowledge engineers, but more for domain experts and just to provide a high-level overview. Those are high-level, but it doesn't mean that this editor cannot support the more low-level representations. So we still have the ability to author individual expressions, taking advantage of the full expressivity of the HeD language plus the domain model, which in our case is the VMR, Virtual Medical Record. And even if we generate some of these expressions automatically, we'll see that in a moment, we still have the ability to go back here and see the underlying structure. This is what we meant before in terms of moving between levels. Come here and refine the individual details, maybe fine-tune the expressions as needed in case some specific use case has to be implemented that is not covered by the templates.
So let's not spend any more time on that. Why don't we go now to showing how a rule is actually composed, like you just saw. We'll go back to kind of pulling up a kind of an incomplete version of that same rule.
Let me open this one. Probably going to take a few seconds again. It's I have to run all of this on a relatively slow machine. So let me. Okay, there we go.
Okay, so why don't we go to maybe just composing some of the logic conditions?
Okay.
Or unless there's a part that somebody wants to see, but let's start with you already have to be built. But we're going to pull up one with that. It's not.
No, wait a second. Maybe this one. Oh, this one. Sorry, I actually already had much of the logic in there.
Can you get rid of it? And
we can probably just create a new one.
Okay.
From scratch. So I did save it when there was more logic than I thought. So let's create a new one. Interesting. Oh, there we go. So let me put in what we would usually do is fill in the metadata section and then start altering the rule, in this case using the templates. So if we wanted to make the rule fire on a pre-discharge status, we can just pick one of the items here. So this is how we present the templates to the user for configuration. Each template is based on a basic underlying data type, again, from the domain model, which is VMR. It's completely pluggable, but the templates are built on top of this. And then the template picks a number of fields or attributes based on the properties of the data model. Some of them are marked as mandatory by the template, some of them are marked as optional. And the template can also provide default values or restrictions or partial configurations that simplify the authoring process. So in this case, the pre-discharge status is actually completely filled. It uses a code from some code set to be defined. So we can just confirm this and the block is built for us.
You can give it a simpler, smaller title or change that.
Oh yeah, I actually, the other thing is
this pre-discharge.
Charge, and we can, oh yeah, sorry, it didn't refresh. Okay. Then as we move to conditions, we can start build the logic. So for example, we had the requirement to take a patient whose age is greater than 18.
Greater than or equal.
So we have one primitive that has been configured with that explicitly. So
greater than or equal. Symbol.
Yeah, the symbol is may cause some trouble. So let me just use this one. So now, in this case, we have a number of constraints that we can pick. This is also based on some, at the moment, initial analysis of the model and the compatible data types. And then the model itself pre-configures the unit of measurement to be years. It can be changed if needed. If not, we can just keep the default one and just specify the actual value, which is what we need. So as we confirm this primitive, the block is built for us to be used later and to be composed with the rest of the templates.
Let's add a condition of a diagnosis of acute. Maybe you can start looking for it, searching.
So Another feature that we have is the ability to look at templates, because as mentioned, we have a few ones here, but in general, there could be many more. So we have both the syntactic search, so we can filter some templates based on the name or title. We can even have some more advanced semantic search features. So if we, for example, start looking for a concept, so let me pick one.
Acute myocardial.
Acute myocardial. So this box on the top here is actually sending a call to a CTS2 server. Again, due to the network communication, it's a bit slow. But as we get the response back and we pick one of the code and we filter, we can see that based on the metadata that were attached to the templates themselves and through some matching process, we could realize that 3 of these templates were actually compatible with the code that was looked at. And if we pick one of them, a side effect of this match is that now part of the attributes are pre-populated. So in this case, the one attribute that matched was the first one, the prototype. So the editor is already suggesting to the user that this field, the first one, is probably meant to be filled with that particular value. So as we give a name to the instance of this template, we can see that the mandatory fields in this case were also the data range, the relative data range. So we could put in, let's say, 15 days past. And the status of the problem...
Oh, less than 15 days.
Oh yeah, less than 15 days. And the status of the problem is also already pre-configured by the template to the default value of active. So when we instantiate it, now we have an active problem of acute myocardial infarction.
Davide, this is Jacob again. You looked up using CTS2, and I might have missed it. You picked SNOMED CT concept. Is there a way to pick a value set rather than a specific concept?
Yep, we're working on the integration. We have that as well. So
we don't have all of the, there's some commercially available and expensive value sets, so we don't have them in there, but we have some test value sets that we've been using.
So let me...
ESAC has value sets, right? The NLM has already value sets.
Right. And so we haven't incorporated the VSAC value sets yet, but we basically used a few that we needed for this model, but they can be used as well.
Yeah, we built a couple of value sets specifically for this demo, but we have a script, among other things, that builds imports and builds value sets based on external data sources. So let me show an example.
There is a CTS2 interface for that, for VSAC. You guys know that?
We've not used that, so that would be good to test. But the editor actually relies on any external CTS2 service, so that could be a good exercise to test how compatible they are.
So ischemic vascular disease is a good example of that.
So if we have values that we can look at values that as here, pick a values that are now, this expression will be built using the...
Just change the title.
Yep. So
IVD. Yeah.
And again, we go left, and we can say 15 days again. And in this case, we have we can also do a code lookup inside a value set. So this time the status is still pre-configured to pick values out of a value set, but this time we're interested in the individual codes, so we can look them up and see what the editor suggests. Now, this value set is 3 values, so it's not a very important one. But let's pick active problem and confirm. So we got our block. And as you can guess, we can keep building. So we have the...
We don't need to build all these others. Maybe we could just show an example of how you could just pick one, like one of the contraindications.
Oh yeah, we had the levels of the threshold. So this one...
Low platelet.
We had the low platelet, and in this case it was platelet, well, some of those. Platelet count, we got less, put in some value.
150,000.
Which, and then we confirm this as well. So as we build now...
There was a couple conditions, but let's not spend time on it. We show you how we compose those now.
Yeah, and now, once we have, as the core expressions are built, we can then go here and pick from the palette our logical operators and start building basically the logic itself. So let's prepare 3 blocks, and then, so one was age greater than 18, and then we had the or condition, so at least one of the other, so we have 2 here, and the low platelet. Actually, no, the low platelet was
a not condition.
It had a not, and finally we just save the thing.
And you can give that a name too.
So we can put names in here and
or name in the big block too.
Diagnosis and
so those names, as we show those, are the ones that appear in that summary on that slide. That
yeah. So we can always go there and see what has been built so far. So we see the both the logic structure and the temporary XML that has been built again for us on the fly.
Then go. We can go to actions now. But
yeah. So
I don't know how much people want to see about that, but it's the same process.
So as you can see, we still have all the expressions built for us behind the scenes.
Yeah, didn't show that.
We have
let's go. Oh wait, no, we don't need that now.
Yeah, just to show that we have things going on. Yeah. And then, as we go back to the actions, we can now complete the pieces.
Well, let's just put one action in the but it's the same idea.
Same idea. We can put in a message. So alert message, and we can for messages we can pick the patient has been. We'll type whatever matters, and we can also include variables to link to some of the, for example, the fact that there was the diagnosis. And then, in this case, it builds the create action for us.
You can give that a name also.
There's the default one, and then or we can say
message. Yeah.
Send alert.
And yeah. Does anybody want to see more of this, or can we? Or do you get the idea?
Hello?
We're here.
I don't know if it's worthwhile. We can, basically compose the entire thing that you saw before with all the action components. And there was one component that said, send a message to patient and doctor. And there was another one that said, pick one of the other 3 things. It's pretty much the same idea of composing.
So we'll have templates for actually placing orders, and we can pick the substance, do a code lookup. We've got optional fields. This is a full template taken from the HeD original specification. Some of these fields will have defaults, others will have restrictions, and we would basically keep building the whole thing.
Oh, the one thing that's interesting to show is that on actions, they can have preconditions so that if you don't always want to do that action, you can.
So we can actually either build new conditions from templates. Again, we repeat the conditional templates here. But we can also bring in already defined conditions and link them, attach them to individual actions. So this is looking at retrieving the variables from the underlying definition.
So the semantics of it is that action would only be done if that condition was true.
Yep.
So you could have a collection of actions with kind of filters on those.
Yeah, and we have some limited ability to actually compose complex conditions as well as complex group actions. So we got both groups and logical operators to compose more sophisticated.
So you can imagine conditional operator order sets or conditional templates for documentation, things like that.
Local logic.
And so that's basically the idea. I don't know if you want to see more. I'd like to kind of go to kind of a little summary of where we are and what needs to get done and where we could go in the future, if that's okay with people.
Yes, fine.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to the slides then. And then we can hopefully leave a few minutes for discussion. So one of the things we're going to do within the next, May 10th we're putting as a definite date, is to finish the documentation and put what we have, what's already in, is actually getting updated daily for distribution, but it doesn't have any documentation with it. So we're going to get that done. I think there's going to be an ongoing process of usability testing and update based on feedback that we get from you all and from others. And as we do that, we want to kind of production engineer and quality engineer this. We haven't really had time to do that, but I think we're at a point now where we have the parts integrated. There was a lot of work in integrating the underlying model process with the overlaid user interface, and so I think really now the usability testing and refinement is an important next step. There's a number of things that we'd like to do, and I think this really depends on whether there's interest and ways of supporting those activities, and those could be a variety of different kinds of ways of supporting them, from user communities and possibly other work that we do. But one is that we'd like to have more prototype or I guess call them primitives or templates for the usual kinds of things that people compose, so that they're kind of pre-packaged and create basically an extensible library of those. We want to refine the ability to automatically select based on starting to type, like hemoglobin A1C, and have it know that it's a lab test, have it know that it can participate in these 3 or 4 types of templates, and have you select those. And one way to do that we haven't integrated yet is the UMLS Specialist Lexicon and Semantic Network, which would allow us to immediately recognize abbreviations and synonyms for concepts and find their semantic type, which could then map directly to the template major type. And then, as we talked about, having more robust collection of value sets, like the VSAC value sets and others that are being created. Some of them, cost some money, and so it'd be a question of who the user is and whether to do that. And then integrating all that into CTS2. We have a version of CTS2 that we're using from Emory Fry, and it's got some limitations, but it's kind of a work in progress also. I mentioned refinement of the user interface. One of the things we're thinking about is a wizard mode that's kind of, but I think the 3 steps are going to triggers, logic, and actions are really basically what the wizard would do, so it's not going to add a whole lot to this. There are some extensions of the HeD itself that both are underway and I guess being considered for quality data model integration, for including extensions to go where the model doesn't cover. We found some constructs, for example, for creating triggers that aren't really modeled either in the VMR or the HeD model, and that we need to find ways to go beyond if we're going to use this tool, for example, for enterprise knowledge, refinement. And so we need to have a way to use the editor kind of in the extension modes. There may be extensions also for, calculating numerators and denominators, or ranging over groups of patients rather than applying a rule to an individual patient. We want to, we're doing this for some other things. We're doing FHIR interface integration, and we're looking at the profiles that are being developed for using clinical element model as part of FHIR, and possibly incorporating that and how that relates to the VMR that's being used for the examples we've shown so far. I know there's a larger community interested in that issue, so we're interested in that as well.
Now joining.
And then, there may be occasions where the XML itself needs to be tweaked. Right now, we don't feel that it's worthwhile incorporating an XML editor in this tool, but rather to hand it off to some of the robust XML editors that are out there. And then lastly, depending on where needs are, to create adapters for other kinds of output, like outputting this as drools or Arden or other forms. We already showed you an early version of an English narrative adapter for documenting the template, the artifact. And then we see a number of potential uses. There may be others that we have listed here, but one is quality measure authoring that I'm sure you all are talking about. There's a lot of knowledge management uses at the enterprise level, or knowledge vendors for managing a national resource library or a specialty organization library. We also think that by the fact that this is highly model driven and that every attribute basically is able to be indexed as a meta tag, both the class element and the value sets composing it, that this can become a very highly searchable knowledge repository that allows you to know, what you have for a particular purpose or context or setting, and if you have multiple knowledge artifacts or you have a gap where you don't have any. And it also allows, therefore, maintenance of the knowledge resource. And another kind of potential application of something like that is actually to create knowledge-aware applications that maintain your context or knowledge and can pull up knowledge artifacts that are appropriate at any point in time. So these are all kind of future potential things that might be able to be done. So I think we can actually stop here and go back to anything you want to see or answer questions.
No questions on our end right now. Anyone else have any questions?
Just some feedback, Bob. This is good, and frankly better than I expected. So congrats. You mentioned that the stuff is up in GitHub, and I gather from the slides more documentation to follow. Have we been tracking who's been engaged, and are there others who seem interested in participating and collaborating on enhancing the product as it moves forward over time?
Dominic, you might want to answer that one.
So I think so. We have had at least 2 or 3 contacts with people that would like to see more of this. And in detail, I would also like to meet with Glyn Rhodes, who's been asking. We had a dedicated demo last week, and he's volunteered to help us at least in deploying and installing the code and possibly doing some work with that. Other than that, I got a couple of people that showed quite some interest, and I had to get back to them. And then the Mayo Clinic may also be, which is one of our partners, may be interested, especially in the management and high-level modeling aspects.
Okay. Good to see.
And then we're also, on some other things, we're working with Aziz Baxwala and Emery Fry, and we see some synergies of the things that they're building with this, so that, like the CTS2 and some other knowledge tools. And so I think there's some potential, in terms of how they respond to various opportunities they have, and how we do that. We can kind of create some, more added value by working together with them and others, that have interest in this kind of thing.
Cool. Thank you.
All right.
And yep.
If there's no other questions from the ONC or from anyone else that's not SHARPC, then I think we have accomplished what we needed to accomplish today.
Okay, and I would welcome anybody to either write to me, greenus@asu.edu. I'm sorry I didn't put it on there, or Davide is Davide.Satara. Oh, well, actually, Chrisanne, if you would send out our contact info, I would appreciate
I will.
the list.
I'll send out the
How about
contact.
a link to the GitHub repository where this is? I'm sure we could go find it, but if you could just send a link when you send the contact info, that'd be great.
Absolutely, and I'll also send a link to the video. We have recorded this, and we'll so that everybody can see the demo.
Great. Well, thank you all for participating, and we look forward to your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.